Good morning. Yesterday marked the first full year of the Trump administration, and it's clear Americans are worse off today with Donald Trump and Republicans' leadership. And while it's nearly impossible to measure all of the damage done by the Trump administration, there are a few new lows hit as the nation deserves extra attention. In 2025, American families paid $310 more on groceries and $1,625 more overall compared to 2024, thanks to Donald Trump's tariffs. On top of that, more than 1 million people were laid off last year, the most since the 2020 pandemic, making it even harder for Americans to find good-paying jobs to make ends meet. And their signature achievement and their signature legislative accomplishment, what Republicans tout all the time, was the single largest cut to healthcare in our nation's history, all in order to give corporations already making record profits additional money and permanent tax cuts. 1 year in, the American people want to know when Donald Trump will finally put their needs first. And I wish we could say that the worst was behind us. But in this Trump cruel and chaotic administration, they have continued to double and triple down on the policies that are wrecking this economy and hurting hardworking families. Even as Donald Trump focuses his attention on other countries, Republicans here at home have the opportunity to do something. They have an opportunity to lower costs that people face, and they continue to choose not to. Before the Senate right now is an extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Millions of families rely on this for their health care and will see their premiums skyrocket, and have seen their premiums skyrocket as a result of Republican inaction. We won't stop fighting until we get this done. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. Donald Trump has been in office now for a little over a year, and the results are clear. He has made America more expensive, and people are worse off now than they were a year ago. Healthcare costs are up, grocery prices are up, utility costs are up. And what does Donald Trump focus on? Greenland. I am pleased that he did say at Davos that he would not use military force to acquire Greenland. And that's because any order from the president to invade Greenland without congressional authorization would be in legal order. I also had the opportunity to go to Minnesota for the Democratic hearing on the abuses of ICE. And we heard from local law enforcement, we heard from nonprofit organizations, we heard from ordinary Americans, and some of their stories are horrific. ICE has been engaging in what appear to be clear violations of federal law. We heard that there was a detention center where they have an entire section marked U.S. citizens. That is mind-blowing. ICE enforces immigration laws, not laws against U.S. citizens. And yet, there are numerous stories of U.S. citizens being detained, being abused, being assaulted. And I want to say this. The American people have the First Amendment right to observe ICE operations. The American people have the First Amendment right to peacefully photograph ICE operations. The American people have the First Amendment right to peacefully film and live stream ICE operations. Donald Trump has sent ICE across the country to try and intimidate people and communities in various states, and the people of Minnesota said, no, we're not going to take it. We will not yield. We will not bend the knee. And every time ICE engages in what appears to be abuse, more Minnesotans show up. Every time ICE and Border Patrol engage in what appear to be unlawful actions, more Minnesotans show up and observe, film, and live stream ICE. And this is so important because the evidence that's being gathered can be used in future years. And while this administration might not prosecute ICE officers or Border Patrol officers for violating federal law, a future administration can do so. The statute of limitations for most federal crimes is 5 years. And so to the people of Minnesota and people across this country, exercise your First Amendment rights.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lieu. Questions? Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Both that the DHS proposed bill was a discussion point in caucus this morning. Did you come away with a sense of the caucus has reached a consensus on where members will be on the bill or leadership position that members will vote their conscience of their district?
Members are always, the responsibility is to always vote your district. But what we heard from caucus was a presentation from Rosa DeLauro, ranking member of the full committee of appropriations, as well as ranking member Henry Cuellar, the subcommittee ranking member. I can appreciate some of the work that went into the bill, some of the additional pieces that they were able to place in bill language. I also understand that with a continuing resolution, ICE would likely have more flexibility. But what we heard overwhelmingly was our members. And in the last 24 hours, we've heard our members speak loudly that ICE isn't doing enough. These reforms aren't enough. Their lawlessness has to stop. And they are only doing this because they can. They're only doing this because the president of the United States wants to use them to terrorize communities, to terrorize U.S. citizens, as the vice chair heard directly last week in Minneapolis, St. Paul, to scare people. There are kids throughout this nation who are not going to school because they're afraid. They're afraid that they're going to get picked up. They're afraid that their family member who is taking them to school will be picked up. That's just wrong. There aren't enough guardrails within this bill. I can still appreciate the work that went into the bill while mentioning that common sense reforms that Democrats put up as amendments and alternatives were roundly rejected. They should not be allowed to detain U.S. citizens, and they are. They should not be able to fire at moving vehicles unless their life is in danger, and they are. That's wrong. The caucus has concerns about it, and I don't think we're going to have true accountability until Democrats are in charge. Our Republican colleagues don't seem willing or able right now to offer the level of oversight and critique of that agency that also, by the way, funds things that we support. TSA, FEMA, those are important. That's important work that the federal government does. It's unfortunate that the behavior of ICE is jeopardizing the Homeland Security bill.
I know you were just speaking on behalf of the caucus. Figured out your position on the bill.
I shared with the caucus this morning, and the leadership team has shared with the caucus that that we'll be voting no unless there are any substantive changes or amendments in the Rules Committee.
To answer your question, ICE is out of control. And how do we know that? We now have the extraordinary actions of local law enforcement holding press conferences and issuing statements and doing interviews criticizing ICE. So let me read you what Hennepin County Sheriff DeWanna Witt said. Quote, "I am seeing and hearing about people in Hennepin County stopped, questioned, and harassed solely because of the color of their skin," Witt said. "We cannot let people in our communities think that our local law enforcement leadership is okay with actions that are not only wrong, but illegal." Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley in a press conference said, "In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, preventing her from recording it. The officers had their guns drawn, and after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer." So now you have ICE agents going ahead and taking illegal actions against local law enforcement officers. And the American people know ICE is out of control because multiple polls now show that ICE is underwater. Their approval and disapproval ratings have flipped since the beginning of this year. And so we ask ICE and the Department of Homeland Security, you need to follow the law. And if you don't want your officers to be put at more risk, they need to follow the law.
Questions?
Yeah, you mentioned Greenland, and the president has threatened European NATO allies with tariffs unless Denmark gives up Greenland, including my own country, Norway. Will this be an issue for Congress?
I sure hope so. I don't know if it's going to be an issue within these bills. Democrats will offer amendments and language to help strengthen this alliance with our European friends and our native allies. We'll see if Republicans are serious about pushing back. against the Trump administration to accept this language. They have not accepted language specific to Greenland in the past. We may have more opportunities to make our voices heard, but right now we want our Republican colleagues to also speak up and to use their voices and to say that they don't support the president's effort to go after and potentially attack a NATO ally. As the vice chair mentioned, he said, Trump said this morning that he wouldn't use force, but that still does not eliminate the threat that our Greenlander friends face. And so that's a concern for all of us. It should be a concern for all Americans that Donald Trump wants to prioritize Greenland and Venezuela over them. He continues to ignore the concerns that Americans have by focusing on these shiny objects that distract him. It's wrong. It hurts the American people, and it hurts from our efforts to truly lower costs that people face. Back.
Thank you. Jack Smith will be testifying before the House Oversight Committee tomorrow. There's a lot of back and forth with Chairman Jordan and the public and private. Now will be a public hearing tomorrow. What do you expect to hear from Jack Smith at all?
Well, I hope we hear as much of the truth that Jack Smith can share, although I think he is bound by some orders that the court has given upon his final report. That's unfortunate. He should be allowed to share the full details, but to the extent that he can share information that hasn't been in the public realm, I think everybody should welcome that. It's a oversight hearing, and our responsibility to provide oversight, even though the president doesn't want it, is very real. And so I appreciate that the committee is doing this work, and there will be more oversight to come when Democrats control the gavels next year.
I'm thrilled the Republican chairman is having Jack Smith testify publicly, because Jack Smith is going to tell the American people all the evidence that he has collected against Donald Trump and why Donald Trump was lawfully indicted and why Donald Trump violated federal law. And the American people are going to hear that. And I encourage everyone to watch.
Just to clarify on the DHS bill, you had said that you had told the caucus that leadership is going to be a no on it. Would you be whipping against it, or would you be letting members make their own decision?
I'm sorry, I want to be more clear. I told the caucus that I was voting no. Other members of leadership also spoke and indicated that they were a no, unless there were substantive changes. I'm not the Democratic whip. Catherine Clark gets to decide that, but we shared our feelings with the caucus. I look forward to vote tomorrow, and if there are members who have questions, they know how to find Henry Cuellar and Rosa DeLauro. I would imagine that there'll be more conversations on the floor, but ultimately, I imagine that members will vote their districts, and they will judge the bill on the substance. Thankfully, to Rosa DeLauro's leadership, this is a bill that is kind of standalone, and you don't have to worry about it being part of, defense or transportation, housing, or the labor health bill. This is truly on its own merits on an up or down vote, and we'll see where Democrats land. But our encouragement to our colleagues is that this bill doesn't do enough.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A recent CBS News poll found that voters say they trust Republicans more than Democrats on immigration by 10 points. Are you at all concerned that Democrats are making the wrong decision in opposing this DHS funding bill, especially when the Republican Party has the advantage on immigration in some of these polls?
If we're judging on polls, then I think Republicans are going to feel the sting. I think Donald Trump's rating on immigration, you cited one poll, there's other polls that show him 10 points underwater on this topic, 20 points underwater on the economy. If we're judging by polls alone, then I think Republicans have a problem based on the last 366 days that we've been here. And Donald Trump's ratings and Republicans' support, the Republican rating on these topics continues to crater. So I think the American people are seeing this, and they're judging it, and they're saying we've had enough. And so I think that's a better question for the Republican conference as to whether they're going to change any of their behavior based on where the public is. I think you see the answer when 17 Republicans support our healthcare initiative on the floor. Republicans are pushing back against their own leadership because they know they continue to lose on this issue, because they know they are underwater on healthcare with the American people. They are losing traction on immigration. They are losing traction. They're underwater on the economy, which was a strength of the president's election. All of these issues, the American people are feeling this. And by the way, the American people don't like, look at the poll, look at the crosstabs. They don't like what they're seeing out of ICE. Nobody objected to detaining and deporting violent criminals. We said as Democratic leaders that we supported policies to do that. This is not that. This is rounding up people, scaring people, terrorizing communities. That's what this is about. And that's what Donald Trump continues to do. And the American people will have an opportunity to exercise their First Amendment rights in their communities, and they will have an opportunity to push back against these Republican policies this November, if not sooner.
The reason you're seeing the result you showed is very interesting. I'll get to why that is. What we do know is, as the chairman said, poll after poll shows that the Trump administration is underwater on immigration. We know that the president is underwater by 10 points on immigration, according to a recent poll. Specific to ICE, 2 polls were released earlier this month. One had ICE at approval of only 37%, disapproval of 57%. CNN released a poll showing that 51% of American people believe ICE operations are making American cities less safe. Only 31% believe it's making American cities more safe. The reason you have the result you saw is because it turns out when you look at the crosstabs, Democrats are not as unified behind Democrats in terms of immigration. They actually want to see Democrats do far more on immigration. And that's why you're seeing those results, not because that the overwhelming majority of people don't see that ICE is out of control. And a recent poll that came out showed that 71% of American people, according to YouGov and The Economist, believe the country is out of control. And Donald Trump is at historic lows of only 37% approval. That's what the facts show.
Eric?
Can you talk about the appropriations process more broadly and the other minibus? Do you feel like at the end of the day, DOGE has been rebuffed? Or do you have any confidence that Russ Vought and others will actually spend money on cancer research and other things?
Well, this is now law. I mean, before they could point to those were Biden era bills. We're not bound by those. This is now law that will be signed by the president of the United States, presumably, and Republican Senate and House, adding language that restricts OMB, that offers more guardrails so OMB reports to Congress the actual spend levels that they're undertaking, that they aren't setting a path for a reduction in NIH grants, as you mentioned, by playing gimmicks with a multi-year funding. Those pieces will all now be, law. And so I give credit to Rosa DeLauro. If the administration wants to continue to be lawless, if Russ Vought wants to continue to not follow the law, there isn't language we could carve to require him to do that. What we are doing is working in a bipartisan way to find consensus and to add language that asserts our ability to govern spending here. But I can't help but also say, I mean, this is exactly where Democrats told Tom Cole and our Republican colleagues we would end up. 7 months ago, in those appropriations meetings, we said, these bills, this language, these funding levels, they aren't going to fly. Work with us. Let's find a bipartisan solution. And 7 months later, we're here. I wish that we would have used our time more effectively rather than partisan riders that Republicans carried forward in appropriations. But now we have, in most cases, workable bills.
On the issue of affordability, I think I mentioned Republican legislators speak ad nauseum about the benefits that tax cuts brought from the big beautiful bill. Do you have any response to that, and how you and other Democratic legislators have been speaking about how Donald Trump's presidency has been costing Americans money?
Well, the data. I mean, just like look at the data. What they are reacting to was getting their butt kicked in elections in November, where Democratic candidates, I was at the swearing in of our former colleague, Abigail Spanberger, who became the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Democratic candidates around the country not just New Jersey and Virginia, but in the South, in Georgia, in Mississippi, had electoral success because they were talking about real issues. They were talking about affordability. They were talking about making life easier for people. And Republicans see that. And so now they react. But the American people also understand exactly what happened. This is the policy of Donald Trump that they have supported by not pushing back on tariffs. It is only going to get worse when all of the healthcare cuts and the nutrition cuts come into place around this country. It is going to be hurtful to the American public. They are going to have a tougher time finding healthcare, finding affordable healthcare for them and their families as a result of the big ugly bill. And so we're confident that when people fill out their taxes this year, as well as when they use some of these amazing programs, that they're going to see this and they're going to have an ability to exercise their opinion later in November.
Going back to Greenland, earlier today, Speaker Johnson of the hearing said that thus far does not believe Trump has exceeded his authority when it comes to tariffs. If he does impose tariffs against NATO allies, is there anything the minority can do in either chamber to reel in the executive branch, as Speaker Johnson said he doesn't feel the need to?
Well, I mean, ultimately, the speaker controls the functions of the House floor. I'm uncertain some days whether Donald Trump is the speaker or Mike Johnson is the speaker, but whoever it is controls what happens on the floor. That includes offering privileged resolutions when it comes to use of military force, as well as privileged resolutions pushing back against the tariffs. All of these are tools that we can use in the minority. You also saw us use tools, and we were successful 3 times in the end of the year on discharge petitions. So those are the limited tools that the minority has. We look forward to working in a bipartisan way, as we have been, and as our track record shows, to push back for the American people and to get wins where we can, if it helps lower costs and make people's lives better.
The Joint Economic Committee said that 96% of tariffs costs are passed on to the American consumer. So this is how ludicrous Donald Trump's idea is. He's saying, if I don't get my way on Greenland, I'm going to punish American people even more. I mean, how dumb is that, right? By enacting even more tariffs, he's just going to hurt the American consumer even more. So we're asking the president, focus on America, not on Venezuela or Greenland, and focus on reducing costs to Americans instead of jacking them up.
Thank you.